My name's Rob Ryder, speaking out of Cornwall. This is the book, which was the follow-up to the book I wrote in the middle of the lockdown, which was Medical Fascism. This is Medical Despotism with Patrick Quantum because I wanted to put more science into the book. So I'm not going to go about the lockdown itself and the alleged pandemic. What I'm trying to talk about at the moment is mind control. Because everything is mind control. And what I noticed, it was 2018. I'm going to put maybe a link or two below later on, but I'm not going to put a link to what I'm going to say now, because for something to be true and real, you have to research it yourself and find it. And just giving people information, they won't check the links. It won't become a truth. Oh, just Rob said it. Talking nonsense again. No, find out for yourself. So many weeks before the lockdown, before it, should we say, went around the world, I'd done a talk locally regarding, should we say, contagion. I'm going to try and find a link below. I was sat on my mate's couch. He'd invited me over to talk about vaccinations on his channel. His YouTube channel was eventually taken down because of Hunter Biden's laptop, which turned out to be true. Anyway, it's on Rumble now. I'll probably find the link on Odyssey. And we were having a chat. He was just talking to me about my research on vaccination. And we were just casually, I mentioned what was happening in Wuhan at the time, because it was just contained, should we say, it was contained in Wuhan. And I stated there's nothing, or it just started to come out of Wuhan, should we say, maybe it got to Italy. And I said there's nothing going around the world apart from fear and hysteria. And I mentioned it's connected to some kind of operation, Agenda 2130 type operation, which is a control mechanism. And it had, the deaths hadn't really happened then, but we were mentioned that casually, apart from that, there was an agenda to kill off old people. And if you look what had happened after that, that's quite prophetic. So how did I know, this was 6 weeks before about the lockdown, that the only thing going around the world was fear and hysteria? Because obviously I'd studied contagion many years before, working with Patrick. But also I knew for many years, ultimately, this was a psychological operation. And I'll ask you to research something. It was, I think it was 2018, I'm not sure now. But go and check the dates, research it yourself to make it true. We had this storm, winter storm, coming over from the east, which is completely normal. It just means it's going to be cold because it's coming from the east. It's winter, they're not coming from the west as normal. A lot of storms come from here because we're in the middle of winter. I think it was February. And every hour on the hour, or even half hour now, it was in the news, the beast from the east. They've named the storm the beast from the east. Now, obviously, the naming storms nowadays to give this impression of climate disaster. Yeah, give it a name, you exaggerate it, and that's the psychology being used. It's quite simple, actually, but most people fall for it simply because they don't know, they're not aware that psychology is being used against them. So this report was coming out on the news every single hour or half hour, the beast from the east, 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 this storm. I instinctively knew something was going to happen and Putin would get the blame. I knew that. I didn't know what, but it was obvious. It was repeated too much, the beast from the east. So they were priming people that something in the east is a beast. They were priming people. And I knew, but I didn't know what it would be. Then literally a few weeks later, you have the Russian spy poisoning incident in the UK. And everybody then, without knowing, was willing to accept that this was a Putin attack. So Putin is the beast. Putin was the beast. Everyone was being primed subconsciously to accept Putin as the beast. So when this incident happened, Novichok, incident happened, everyone was willing to accept the beast from the east was Putin. Quite simple. And obviously that had been primed and primed then. Then you up the propaganda against Russia and Putin, this evil dictator. And when the war in Ukraine happened, nobody was interested in the details of the moment, the details going back to 2014, the historical details. No, Putin is the beast. He's the beast from the east. We don't need to know the details. He's the beast from the east. He's the devil. And that's how you prime people. And that's why it's everywhere, the mind control. Now, the Ukraine is a very complicated drama that's taking place there. You know, it's the ancient home of the Khazarian mafia. You put a map of ancient Khazarian Ukraine, it almost mimics it. It's almost identical. The fact that they're already planning the future of Ukraine as a complete digital country, this future, you know, it makes me think that, you know, there's this huge chess game going on that we're not invited, and quite possibly Putin's a part of it. Yeah, so there isn't a war East v West. He's probably playing his role because they've already acknowledged, you know, I stated in my money book, you know, the IMF had offered loans after the 2014 revolution that were turned down. They were going to loan Ukraine money, but they had to start privatization, mainly the farming land, because it's the richest farming land in Europe, not the world. And it was turned down. The first thing Zelensky did when he came in was accept the billion or whatever it was loan off the IMF and start the process of privatization. Then BlackRock, Cargill Group, all these people went in to take over the wealth of the country. So basically Zelensky, who's this alleged hero for the Ukrainian people, sold them out to the IMF. That's why he's a puppet. Not many people talk about that, but he sold them out to the IMF. And then this proxy war that's taking place, we all knew it was about asset stripping. There'd be a price to pay for the Ukrainian people for all this money that they're accepting. And Trump, what was the first thing he does? Right, we want your assets. You know, we need our money back. It's not even subtle. It's in your face, but people just ignore it because they're brainwashed. Putin is the beast from the east. Everything else then is justifiable. This whole drama in the world is psychological. That's why I knew 6 weeks before, sitting on the couch with my mates, that there's nothing going around the world except fear and hysteria, because I know the game that's being played. And it's everywhere. The psychology is everywhere. So you've got the beast from the east, a psychological operation. You've got this divide and control that's taking place in the UK with Tommy Robinson. His job is to create more division. Is aligned with Israel. We know that. Is there now, believe, openly stated that. Their job is to demonize the Muslim people. But then if you look at who's been the cause of the wars and the terrorism and all in the Islamic countries, it's probably the West interfering. You look at, I can't remember the quote, it's in my money, but Boris Johnson's quote, I think it was in Lebanon, when he was caught off camera saying, you know, we just need to clear the bodies out of the way, we'll make it up like the next Dubai, something like that. You know, these countries we're invading because we've, you know, you demonize Gaddafi, you demonize Saddam Hussein. There was no weapons of mass destruction, and yet we still accept him as a demon. It doesn't matter the objective reality, it's how you perceive things. He's a devil, then anything else is justifiable. Yeah, the Palestinians are demons, then any massacre then is justified. You know, Gaddafi is a demon, any massacre then is justified. Saddam Hussein is a demon, then any massacre is justified. Tony Blair was asked on TV that, you know, his basically lie of weapons of mass destruction caused the death of 800,000 innocent Iraqis, and his reply was, no, I just think it was 250,000. And so that makes a difference. This is the psychopathy of these people. But everything is a mind control operation, everything. What we think are ground roots, organic operations are not. You look at the flag waving going on recently in England, in the UK mainly in England. Now, there's nothing wrong with being patriotic. I'm not against that. You know, our patriotism is being destroyed. It's being turned into racism, which it isn't. But I think it was the UK Colin. I think it was, they did a bit of research into this allegedly young lad who was behind it, who started it off organically. It wasn't organically. He had connections. So again, that's a mind control operation, which what creates more division. It's all mind control, everything. I've known the UK column since about 2009, probably late 2009, 10. So I knew them when they came across this document, government document, Mindstabase. Influencing people's behaviour is nothing new to government, which has often used tools such as legislation, regulation or taxation to achieve designed policy outcomes. But many of the biggest policy challenges we are now facing, such as increasing people with chronic health conditions, will only be resolved if we are successful in persuading people to change their behaviour, their lifestyles, or their existing habits. Fortunately, over the last decades, our understanding of influences on behaviour has increased significantly, and that points the way to new approaches and new solutions. So why social this is my words, why social distancing and not physical distancing? Yeah. So that the words they choose, social distancing, that's kind of a strange word. It was physical distancing. Anyway, they go on to say in this document, influencing behaviour is central to public policy. Recently, there have been major advances in understanding the influences on our behaviour, and government needs to take notice of them. The report aims to make that happen. The vast majority of public policy aims to change or shape our behaviour, and policymakers have many ways of doing it. Most obviously, they can use hard instruments such as legislation and regulation to compel us to act in certain ways. These approaches are often very effective but are costly and inappropriate in many instances. So government often turns to less coercive and sometimes very effective measures such as incentives and information provision, as well as sophisticated communication techniques. I mean, you would, I'll try and actually put a link to that document as well. You would have to go through it to understand all public policy is about behavioral change. I'll just put a quote here from Hitler. The receptivity of the masses is very limited. Their intelligence is small, but their power of forgetting is enormous. In consequence of these facts, all effective propaganda must be limited to a very few points and must harp on these in slogans until the last member of the public understands what you want him to understand by your slogan. So that's Adolf Hitler. And I've put underneath, stay safe, control the virus, save lives. Big brother loves you. So it's mentioned there, must be limited to a very few points. So stay safe, control the virus, save lives. Very limiting. During the lockdown, I was having a chat with a lady who has an autistic child and has worked with autistic child. And she knew that psychology was being used against us because these methods of simple, like the red light, amber lighting system, the simple messaging was how you deal with some autistic children. It's very childlike. I put it in another link in the book to the WHO many years ago, talking about how to deal with people who are challenging vaccination. Keep things simple, using maybe 3 words, 3 phrases, and then don't get bogged down into a detailed conversation. So, you know, stay safe, control the virus, save lives. but we're not going to converse about it. We're not going to debate about it. We're right, you're wrong. It's all psychological. They're openly using psychology against us. But it's not just the government, it's everywhere. It's in the media. It's everywhere. It's in music. We know that. Most people probably watching this video are aware of that. The vast members of the public are not aware of that. That psychology is absolutely, it's a bombardment of psychology. Just check again the weather forecast, the beast from the east. I think it was February 2018. Then go and check when the Novichok incident happened. I think it was early March 2018. Not a coincidence. And that has led everyone now to consistently, without doing an investigation, that Putin is the beast from the east, just via weather forecast. It's insane, absolutely insane. So the psychological attack is everywhere. For me, because it's everywhere, once you can see it, you can't register every single subliminal image or everything that's been said, consciously register it and be careful about it. It's too much because it's absolutely everywhere. But once you're aware of it, what you can do is have a sense of self and what is right for you, what is morally right, and you have a sense when when somebody or some program or news item is trying to influence you, whether it's the radio, the TV, music, newspapers, friends talking even, because they pass on whatever the message is, it gets passed around. And so it's absolutely everywhere that it's too much to be consciously aware of what's going on all the time. But when you have a sense of self and your own balance, you know when something else there, you kind of sense it, that something's trying to interfere with that balance. So ultimately, the war on consciousness is about creating behavior. Because I did a diagram in this book called One Moment in Time, which is a little bit similar to a video I did a while back called Reality, Not a Spectator Sport, which shows behavior is the last step in an informational circle, should we say, energetic process that manifests in behavior. And it's all about how you receive information, not even just the information in itself, how you receive it, how you process it, and that will dictate how you behave. And they're controlling every aspect of that circle. Most people don't even know it. It's such an enormous attack. So you look to the government document Mindspace, which I'll try and find the link below, which they're actually telling us it's everywhere. It's public policy, and the coercing us various ways is designed to control behavior. Yeah, this is the brave new world. And the lockdown was the should we say, experimented with all different types of methods on that. All the methods were thrown out there at the same time. It was a massive experiment on human behavior. So yeah, it's everywhere. Be aware of it. I think, no, I won't do a separate video. I'll add this on here regarding the wars and demonizing people and getting into wars. In the Conscious Humanity book, we spoke about armed neutrality. So a great way to solve problems of war is what Switzerland do, which is armed neutrality. So they have their military, but they don't get involved in other people's problems. Yeah, they just protect their own borders, their own land. Now, for me, if you're asking why Switzerland, well, the Bank of International Settlements is there. The bankers who fund and control our wars aren't going to bomb their own little paradise. That's probably why they've taken on this political stance of armed neutrality. But it's a good stance that everyone could take on, because unfortunately now people think they're fighting for freedom. In the World War I and II, there was other things. It was a banking war, as all wars are. People were brave. They fought. Hitler did actually get to the Channel Islands, so there was, you could say, a threat, but they wouldn't have known the information going on behind the scenes, that they were being betrayed. That's a big chess game going on, they're all pawns. But there does come a point where, regardless if there's a game going on, you have a right to defend your own country. And armed neutrality is a great way of dealing with that. You know, ignore all the other domestic problems and wars going around the world. If everyone just protects themselves, armed neutrality is a great way of keeping peace. There are less people signing up for the military now, but there's still people signing up. And they're just mercenaries, basically. We've been brainwashed to believe British and America are the beacons of freedom, and the military are fighting wars of freedom. How can you fight wars of freedom and peace? I don't understand that. Pure Orwellian talk. You look at the adverts that are on TV to join the military. It's all excitement, adventure. We've got war movies from the 50s, 60s, 70s, glamorizing the death of the hero on the battlefield. Now, I haven't joined the military, but I know people who have, and it's not a heroic death. It's not. The reality of it is very different. And you get these man children like Ant Middleton, and there's another one in America called Jocko Willink, who still believe this whole thing that they're the heroes. They were super soldiers fighting for freedom and peace around the world. They were never fighting, and by saying that, they're demonizing everybody else. Again, it's just like man children, really. You know, they haven't realized, because of their ego, probably they've been swindled. They have to come face to face with the fact they were just mercenaries, basically. And you look at, again, the advertisement, this women's advertisement for the military on the battleground. Oh yeah, but you can have a good football match and get some good football training. Utter mind control. Utter mind control. The glamorizing the military, saying it's all about football and adventure. No, it's about killing people. Yeah, for some corporate agenda that you know nothing about. Women, children, innocent civilians. That's what it's about. But they're selling it as about football, and they're in a trade, and people are falling for it. And when the economy is bad and there's no jobs, what are you going to do? People have to take a stance and say no. Now, if you want to join the military and you don't go out of your own borders, I've got no problem with that. I'm not anti-military. Just protect your own borders. But people have got to see it's just part of basically being a mercenary for some corporate agenda. It's so obvious now. I think more people are seeing it. But with technology, they don't need mass physical people on the war front now. They just need enough. And again, the military advertisement on TV is pure mind control, but it's simple and it's almost childlike. And the reality is, you'll get a woman thinking, oh yeah, I'll join the military, I'll go and play football. Or the bloke, oh yeah, I'll join the military, I'll go and have this little adventure, it's all fun. And then they're thrown in on the battlefront, people getting blown to bits, they're being given orders to kill innocent people, they come back traumatized, and the government doesn't care about them. You know, they've been fooled, but they have to take responsibility and of the consequence. They've been allowed to be fooled. The whole lot is a mind game, and everywhere is a mind game to divide and conquer, and these traps being set everywhere. And the way to avoid that is have that sense of self. What is your balance? What is right? And you learn to smell a rat. It's everywhere. Mind control is everywhere.